Welcome back, everyone. When you asked about doing a deep dive on pair programming to
Mhm.
help get ready for those tech interviews, I was really intrigued.
Yeah.
It seems like everyone's talking about it, but
Yeah.
is it really all it's cracked up to be? You sent over this great article.
Right.
Is pair programming really effective? A comprehensive analysis. And even I have to admit, I was a little skeptical at first.
It's good to question these things. Pair programming's got its fans, but to really get to the bottom of this, we got to look at the research.
Absolutely.
Wow.
So for anyone listening who maybe hasn't done much pair programming, what exactly is it?
Well, in a nutshell, pair programming means you've got two developers working side by side at one computer.
Okay.
One's the driver actually writing the code, and the other is the navigator. They're reviewing the code, like in real time, thinking about what comes next, being a second set of eyes, and they switch roles back and forth.
So you're not stuck as the driver or navigator the whole time.
Exactly. And while it's often linked with agile and extreme programming, it's a technique you can use in lots of situations. We see it in education, in different software development settings, even outside of tech sometimes.
The article dives into all these supposed benefits. Better code quality, solving problems faster, sharing knowledge, even more focus, and better teamwork.
Uh,
I mean, it sounds almost too good to be true, right?
well, let's start with the code quality claim. One of the most well-known studies on this was by Cockburn and Williams back in 2000.
Okay.
They found that pair programming led to 15% fewer defects. 15% may not sound like a huge difference,
Right.
but think about it this way. Imagine you're building a bridge.
Oh, okay.
Would you rather find a problem in the design phase or after the bridge is open and full of cars?
Yeah, that's a scary thought. And I guess in the software world, those problems can really come back and haunt you.
Exactly. Fixing bugs after the software is already out there is really expensive, not to mention the damage it can do to a company's reputation. Pair programming is about catching those issues early on when they're way easier and cheaper to fix.
So it's like that upfront investment in working together actually saves money in the long run. Makes sense from a business point of view.
Yeah.
But what about actually solving problems? Does having two people crowded around a keyboard really lead to better solutions?
There's a really fascinating study by McDowell and his colleagues from 2002 that looked at this. They worked with student programmers,
Oh, interesting.
which makes it relatable, whether you're a pro or just starting out.
Yeah.
What they found was that pairs consistently came up with better solutions compared to students working solo. It seems that constant back and forth, bouncing ideas off each other, really helps spark creative problem solving.
It's like having a built-in brainstorming partner.
Ah,
That's cool. But I have to ask, and this is something I've always wondered, doesn't all this collaboration make things slower? I mean, two people on one task, doesn't it take twice as long?
it's a common thought, and it's true that pair programming might take a bit longer at first. There was a 2009 meta-analysis by Hene and others that found it takes about 15% longer on average.
15%. Okay, so not double the time?
No, but here's the crucial part. This extra time often leads to long-term savings because of that higher quality code and fuel maintenance costs we were talking about.
So it's like taking the scenic route might take a bit longer, but you avoid those potholes and detours later on.
Precisely. And it's not just about the code itself. Remember the article mentioned learning and skill development as benefits.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
Well, there's a study from 2006, again by McDowell and his team, that found students who regularly pair programmed were more likely to stick with computer science and even got better grades.
Now that is interesting. I can see how that would be relevant to our listener who's getting ready for interviews. It's not just about landing the job. It's about doing well in the field long term.
Exactly. Pair programming can help speed up that learning curve, give you a deeper understanding of the concepts, help you build those skills to become a well-rounded developer.
Sounds almost like a secret weapon for career success. And then the article even mentions job satisfaction and better teamwork as benefits.
Yeah.
I'll admit I was skeptical about those at first.
I get your skepticism, but it's worth thinking about. When you're always collaborating, sharing knowledge, solving problems together, it creates a more supportive and engaging environment. A 1998 study by Nosek actually found that programmers who did pair programming reported higher job satisfaction.
I can see that. You're not just cranking out code alone. You're part of a team effort. It's more social, more interactive. Probably less chance of getting burned out, too.
It's definitely a different way of working, and like anything, it has potential downsides. The article talks about those too, and some of them are pretty relatable, even if you're not a programmer.
Okay, let's hear it.
Yeah.
What are some of those potential downsides? Okay, so tell me, what are some of those potential downsides?
Well, one of the biggest criticisms you hear is that it's just not efficient. Like from a company's perspective,
Yeah.
they might see two developers working on one thing and think it's a waste of resources, especially if they're only thinking about those short-term deadlines.
It's that short-term thinking, right?
Yeah.
They see two people doing what one person could do, but they're not seeing the benefits like preventing bugs or the knowledge sharing that's happening.
Exactly. And even if a company's all for pair programming, it's not always going to work for every person or every situation.
Right.
The article brings up things like personality clashes, people not contributing equally, getting tired from all the collaboration, or even just needing some quiet time to think on your own.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Not everyone's going to be comfortable with that much collaboration,
Yeah.
especially people who are more introverted or like to really dig into a problem by themselves.
Absolutely. And it's important to recognize those as real issues, not just someone being antisocial. And that's why the article also talks about some alternatives to the traditional pair programming setup. Things like code reviews, mob programming, ping pong pairing, even just having set times for pair programming.
So it's not all in or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
There are other ways to get some of the benefits.
Right.
I'm curious about mob programming. What is that exactly?
It's kind of like pair programming on a bigger scale.
Okay.
Instead of just two people, you have the whole team working together on one task at the same time.
Wow, the whole team.
There's still one person typing, the driver, but everyone else is talking about the problem, brainstorming solutions, and reviewing the code.
It's like a mega brainstorming session.
You could say that I can see it being useful for those really complex problems, or when something's high risk and you need all hands on deck. What about ping pong pairing? That one caught your eye, didn't it?
Yeah, it sounds kind of fun.
It's all about switching roles really quickly. One developer wants a test that's designed to fail, and then the other person writes code to make it pass, and then they switch. It's good for keeping the energy up, making sure everyone's participating, and it's really helpful for practicing test-driven development, which lots of tech companies use.
Speaking of interview prep, it seems like code reviews are probably the most relevant alternative here for our listener.
Absolutely. Code reviews are pretty standard in a lot of companies, and knowing how to give and receive feedback on code is a super valuable skill.
Yeah, it's like pair programming, but lighter.
Yeah.
You're not actually writing code together at the same time, but you're still looking at each other's work, finding problems, and learning from different perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
Something you could definitely talk about in an interview, even if you haven't done a lot of pair programming.
For sure. It shows you understand the importance of working together, you're comfortable with feedback, and you're willing to learn from others. Those are all things interviewers look for.
So even if a company doesn't do strict pair programming, these other ways of working together are still good skills to have. I guess it all comes back to that collaborative mindset.
Right. And the main thing to remember is there isn't one right way to do this. It's about finding what works best for the team, the project, and each individual developer. Flexibility is key.
Okay, so we've talked about the good, the bad, and some alternatives to traditional pair programming. Seems like a lot to think about, but let's go back to our listener's question. Is pair programming really effective?
Well, like most things in life, it depends.
It depends
Mm-hmm.
on what. And for our listener, what does all this mean for their interviews?
It depends on a few things, actually. And for our listener prepping for interviews, it's important to understand what those things are.
Okay, so break it down for us. What makes pair programming effective?
You need the right people, working on the right tasks, and using the right approach. It's not some magic solution, but when all those things come together, it can be really powerful.
All right, let's unpack that. What do you mean by the right people?
Pair programming isn't for everyone. You got to have good communication skills, be willing to share ideas, and feel comfortable working closely with someone else. Think of it like playing doubles in tennis.
Okay, I can see that.
You need to be in sync, anticipate each other's moves, communicate well to be successful.
So it's not just about technical skills, it's about how you work with others. Makes sense. What about the right tasks? Are some types of programming better suited for pair programming than others?
Absolutely. Complex problems, the ones that need really creative solutions or have a lot of risk, those are often the best fit for pair programming. It's like having two brains attacking the problem from different sides. You catch mistakes easier, come up with more innovative solutions, and just feel more confident about the final product.
So it's not just about speed, it's about quality and making sure things are done right.
Yeah.
The article also talked about the right approach, like some best practices for making pair programming work. Can you tell us about those?
One of the most important is switching pairs regularly. This helps prevent what we call knowledge silos, where only one person knows how a certain part of the code works. It also lets team members learn from each other's styles and approaches.
Oh, that's smart.
like cross-training for your brain.
I love that. Cross-training for your brain. So it's not just about getting work done, it's about learning and becoming a better developer.
You got it. Another important best practice is to make sure you have a good balance of skill levels. Pairing experienced developers with less experienced ones can be a great way to mentor. But it's also good to have pairs with similar skill levels. That way, everyone's challenged and engaged, and it can lead to some really interesting problem solving.
So it's about finding that balance where everyone's contributing and learning.
Mm.
Any other best practices that we should know about?
Clear communication is super important. Encourage pairs to talk through their thought process, explain their reasoning, and ask questions. Remember, pair programming isn't just about writing code, it's about understanding the why behind it. And don't forget to take breaks. That helps prevent fatigue and keeps everyone focused.
All great tips. So let's bring it back to our listener who's getting ready for those interviews.
Yeah.
What should they keep in mind if they're asked to do pair programming during an interview?
First off, don't freak out. Remember, the interviewers are looking at your technical skills, A&D, how well you can work with someone else. They want to see how you communicate, solve problems, and basically how you behave on a team.
So it's about those soft skills as much as the technical stuff.
Exactly. Be ready to communicate clearly, listen to your partner, and be respectful. Don't be afraid to ask questions if you need clarification, suggest different ways to do things, and be open to feedback. And most importantly, try to have fun with it. Think of it as a chance to learn from someone and show off how well you can work with others.
Those are some really good tips. What are some things our listener can do to actually prepare for a pair programming interview?
Honestly, the best thing is to practice. Find a friend, a classmate, or even join a coding community online and try some informal pair programming.
So like a mock interview, but for pair programming.
Yep. It'll help you get comfortable with how it works, practice explaining what you're thinking, and get used to having someone else look at your code.
Takes the pressure off and makes it more about learning.
Ah.
I like that. What else can our listener do?
Think about the tools you'd use. A lot of companies do remote interviews, so get familiar with collaborative coding platforms and screen sharing software. Being comfortable with the tech will make you feel more confident.
Yeah, the last thing you want is to be fighting with the tech during an interview. Any other practical tips?
This might sound simple, but brush up on your communication skills. Pair programming is all about communicating well. Practice explaining your code and your thought process in a way that other people can easily understand.
It's not just about the code itself, it's about how you talk about it.
Exactly. And remember, it goes both ways. Listening is just as important as talking. Pay attention to your partner's ideas, ask questions if you need to, and be open to hearing different viewpoints.
Okay, so our listener has practiced, they know the tools, and they've worked on their communication skills. Anything else they should remember going into those interviews?
I think the biggest thing is to just relax and be yourself. The interviewers want to see the real you, your passion for coding, and how you work with others. Don't try to be someone you're not, and don't let the nerves take over.
It's about showing them what you're good at and letting your personality shine through.
Right. And remember, even if you make a mistake or run into a problem during the interview, it's not a deal breaker. How you handle those situations, how you approach problems, and how you learn from mistakes are just as important as writing perfect code.
So it's not just about the end result, it's about how you get there. So
Yeah.
just showing that you're always learning and growing.
You got it. And who knows, you might even find that you really enjoy pair programming. It can be a fun and rewarding way to work together, solve problems, and learn from other people.
It's a chance to turn what could be a stressful interview into a positive experience.
Yeah.
And on that note, I think we've come to the end of our deep dive into pair programming. We've covered the benefits, the challenges, and even some practical tips for those upcoming interviews. Hopefully our listener feels more prepared and ready to tackle anything.
We covered a lot of ground. And thinking about all this, it makes me realize that the real power of pair programming might go beyond just the technical side. It's about developing those really important human skills. Communication, empathy, being able to adapt. Those are skills that will help you no matter what you do in your tech career.
That's a great point. In a world where tech is becoming more and more important, those human skills are more valuable than ever. So whether you end up doing a lot of pair programming or not, the things you learn from it can help you throughout your career.
It's all about constantly learning, working together, and finding what works best for you.
Well said. Until next time, everyone, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those coding skills sharp.